Hey there. So the new moon in Virgo, it's upon us. It's on the 2nd or 3rd of September, according to where you are in the world. If you are approximately, this is, it's happening 2:55 a.m. in my location, which is I'm in the sort of Lisbon, Portugal area, which is the same time zone as London, UK. If you are to the east of that, most likely it is, or definitely, your new moon is happening on the 3rd of September. If you are the other side of that, if you're to the west of me, and in the States, then your new moon is occurring on the 2nd. Now, I like new moons. They are, birthing a whole new cycle. The moon cycle, the phases of the moon, they are regular. They, I think, are like a cosmic in-breath and out-breath. Everything has its heartbeat, right? We have our heartbeat, we have our breath, our lungs, we take in air and we release air. And it's the natural accumulation and the natural release. It's part of the natural rhythms of life. So I love observing the new moon, the moon phases, and observing their effects in my life. I mean, I wonder, how do the new moon phases, like the waxing phase, how does the waning phase work for you? Are you aware of the energies of the moon and how they play out in your life? No doubt there are times in the month where pretty much guaranteed you could almost plot it on a calendar, where you'll see that there are times when you're more emotional. I'm not talking about the menstrual cycle, though. For many women, the menstrual cycle is also absolutely aligned to the moon phases. But if you're in a relationship with somebody, most likely there are, and you can put them on a calendar, there will be times each month when there is a sticky day, a day when you might both blow up, or one of you. And if you plot it out, don't be surprised to find that there is a pattern according to your unique programming. For instance, where my husband and I have got angles, we've got shared angles, and when the moon goes over one of my angles, it's also going over one of his angles. So these are days that are absolutely heightened in energy. There are particular signs of the zodiac that when the moon goes through it, boy, do things blow up. And then there are other times when, it appears to be very, very beneficial for us. So anyway, I absolutely recommend looking at that. But anyway, this is about the new moon. This isn't about me and my husband and how we might fall out once or twice a month. This is about observing the moon cycles. And so we've got the new moon in Virgo. And in this video, I'm going to be looking at the new moon as a standalone thing, like what does it represent? What does it represent in the sign of Virgo? Then I'm going to have a look at the actual programming of that new moon. I've mentioned it a little bit in the September forecast already, and it will be lightly mentioned in the weekly forecast for the week ahead that I'm also releasing today. But in this, I'm going to be looking at the planetary makeup. This new moon also happens to be in opposition to Saturn. What does that mean? I'll be looking at the degrees and giving a sense of what that might mean to you, and encouraging you to see where this new moon is falling within your chart to get a good meaning for it. In the second part of this video, I'm going to go even deeper, this time using asteroids, or anything, in fact, that appears to be in our solar system, that appears to be lining up in some kind of meaningful way with the new moon. As it happens, it's just asteroids I'm talking about this time, not trans-Neptunian objects or centaurs. I'm just talking about very your bog standard mythological asteroids. What's kind of interesting with these asteroids is every single one of them is a child of Zeus. So they're all of these asteroids are named after mythical characters that all come from Zeus's bloodline. And there's one that is a little bit uncertain. Zeus is known for having lots of extramarital activity and for creating lots of little babies all over the place. So it's going to be interesting, understanding the effects of these mythical asteroids in relationship to the new moon. Now, I'm also going to be having a look at the Sabian symbol for the degree of the new moon, where that's taking place in. That's thanks to, I really, really love the website of Linda Hill. You might have noticed I've chatted with her on a couple of shows. So I absolutely love to take things from her website. It's there for everyone to use. And, I'm kind of hoping that it encourages people to use the work that she's done. These Sabian symbols are really quite profound. So there you go. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Louisa Tanner Munson. The whole purpose of Feel Good Astrology is to use astrology in a way that helps you to feel freer. To feel like you have possibilities, to feel like you have space to be yourself. And I guess that's a bit biased. I'm a Sagittarius, and for me, I feel I feel good when I've got space to be myself, when I feel free, and when I can see that there are possibilities. So yeah, this is kind of designed around my own preferences, but I guess that's what happens, isn't it? But the whole purpose of it is to help you find your space, your peace, your freedom, your sense of possibilities. And that's what I'm hoping happens. If you're if you're coming back to watch me again, thank you so much. I love your support, which brings me to, before I go any further, I just want to say thank you to everyone who does support the channel. I really, really appreciate you. You are the glue that makes this work. So thank you. Right, let's get going then. Let's have a look at the first chart today. So this new moon then, I've written the time as 2:55 a.m. That's because I'm in the London, UK time zone. It's also the midpoint for all the time zones. So, it's a pretty safe bet. The new moon is happening at 11 degrees 4 in the sign of Virgo. There it is in this chart. You can see it's like the sun and the moon are together. That's what happens at the time of the new moon, when it is dark in the sky. There is no light. The new moon is representing a clean slate, as far as I can see. The moon is all about our emotions, our psyche, our intuition, the wealth of our, and I'm going to say feminine. That's not to dismiss masculine intuition, but I'm talking about that kind of feminine energy, that more yielding energy, receptivity. And again, I'm not really saying it to exclude people, but just as it, the sort of moon energy is not thrusting and pushing or hot. It's cool, it's damp, it's receptive, it's moist, it's gentle, as opposed to forceful. So we're talking about we are really at the heart of the energy of the moon. The new moon is in and of itself, like, we talk about Cazimis, or I do some videos about Cazimi energy, where a planet comes into the heart of the sun, and every month the moon comes into the heart of the sun, and we really get a sense of the quiet, the peace, the clean emotional slate. It is giving us this seeding point, a new clarity, a new space for something new to come up. And from the new moon, what we have is the waxing moon phase, which follows, after. So after the new moon then starts to reappear. It starts to reemerge. It slowly grows bigger and bigger and bigger until it gets to the full moon. And then it starts getting slower and smaller and smaller. So it's always getting bigger and then smaller. And we're just about to go into the waxing phase, which is where we're getting bigger and bigger. And it confers, it matches up to the energies of things growing, of sowing your seeds and allowing them to grow, developing possibilities, being ready to have a new adventure, being open to something new occurring. Whereas the waning phase is about letting go. So, this is coming immediately after we've let go of something, so that we have room for something new to grow, which is I guess how it works. Now, the themes with Virgo, obviously there are many themes with Virgo. Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So as such, it's quite a heady, quite a mental kind of energy. Very much in our thoughts, but it's also an earth sign. Virgo is an earth sign, which is quite bodily as well. So we're really thinking about our body. We're really thinking about everything that is earthy, which includes nature, our physical body, our earthly belongings. And with the rational Mercury energy, there's a kind of organizing principle. So I always think that the new moon in Virgo is about getting organized with our physical body, like getting organized with our health, getting organized with organizing our finances, organizing our home, all of our tools, all the things that we use on a day-to-day basis. And I say day-to-day quite purposefully because Mercury is such a fast mover. But, you know, Mercury is about our communications and our meetings and things like that. So I do think Mercury has a lot to do with our calendar. Obviously, the moon does too, and the sun, you know, given their movements. But, you know, Mercury is delivering things. And so I think there is a delivered message with the new moon in Virgo. You know, so things like, are we paying attention? Are we noticing things? What do we need to notice? What needs to come into our awareness? I think all of these are really, really strong things to ask ourselves. And then purity, if you think of Virgo, the Virgin, you know, I wonder how many people think in terms of the original stereotypes for the sun. I don't really look at the sort of stereotypical energy, you know, with the traditional zodiac signs, but there still is some wisdom there. You know, we shouldn't ignore that. You know, the idea of purity, keeping things pure, being very kind of sacred with our energy, with our physical energy, the surroundings, also the energy we're putting into our body. Is it clean? You know, have we got clean food, clean water? Are our habits clean? You know, Virgo has a lot to do with habitual energy and making it work. So I really think if you've got something going on in your life right now where it feels like your life is untenable, there is something in your life that you're not managing very well, that you haven't been paying attention to, where it's actually not fit for purpose. In fact, it's a little bit dysfunctional. Then this new moon in Virgo is perfect for that. Absolutely perfect. It's about getting back into balance. So, you know, if you know where the new moon in Virgo is in your chart, you might choose to do an audit of that part of your chart. So for instance, like in this chart here, for the moment of the new moon in Virgo, this is happening in the second house. Now, if this is happening for you in the second house, you might choose to audit your finances and how you're doing your finances. Is there a more practical way? It's a very sort of like earthy, mercurial kind of Virgo kind of energy. Is it practical? Is it helpful? That's another side to Virgo I haven't mentioned. You know, they are absolutely of service as well, really wanting to help others, be very, very helpful. So is your money helping you? Is it helping you help others? How could you make your money more ethical? How could you invest in an ethical way? Although that also pulls in with the 8th house, which is about other people's money and investments and things. But also, what about the way you're earning your money? How do you value yourself as well? I also think the second house has a lot to do with, you know, valuing yourself, valuing your unique selling points. You know, who are you, and what is that brand that might be worth some money? You know, like when you go for a job interview, you have your own personal brand. Is it time to also invest in that? So there's a lot going on there, but you could also just use it for wellness. This new moon is happening, you know, where it is in my chart, it's in my 10th house. So I could be using it in terms of my output, how I'm seen in the world, in terms of my reputation, and my career and developing it. I could put some intentions out there to make it a bit more functional and get a bit more organized. Actually, I think I'm much more likely, however, to use it in terms of my health. I haven't been paying attention to that. So I'm going to go with the Virgo theme. So that's always worth checking out in your chart. So yeah, check it out in your chart. Now, the next thing to also check out in your chart is, you know, like this is 11 degrees in the sign of Virgo. Have you got some planets at 11 degrees in the sign of Virgo, Pisces, Sagittarius, or Gemini? The mutable signs are the ones that are feeling this a lot more in a very catalyzing way. And you might want to look either side by a good 5 degrees, either side maybe. That's quite wide. You can narrow it down. For instance, my natal moon is at 9 degrees in the sign of Pisces, almost 10 degrees. in the sign of Pisces. So this is in complete opposition to my moon. So again, I might be also thinking in terms of what might that mean to my own moon. So have a look. Is this happening over one of your planets? If so, what is the meaning of that planet? Look it up. If it's over your Venus, you might want to consider how you usually feel each time the moon goes over your Venus. So this is all about making the awareness of the patterns that the current positions of the planets are making to yours. If you haven't already started to study it and observe, start to diarize. And again, this is a real Virgo theme that I'm saying, that get your diaries out, maybe write a list of all the biggest things that have ever happened to you, and start write their dates down. And if you don't have the energy to look at it today, you don't have to, but over time, if you start looking at things, looking at the planets and the charts of these times, you'll start to notice patterns. So this is all about that. Okay, so another thing with this particular theme is the new moon is in opposition to Saturn in Pisces. Now, Saturn is a planet that gives us the energy of limitations and also structure. Because we wear shoes, right? Because it protects our feet. It's limiting our feet from the possibility of hurting ourselves. And it's a tight restriction around our feet. And sometimes, if we've been on our feet all day, they might expand a little bit, they might feel a bit tight in the shoes. So it's limiting, but it's also possibly helpful in terms of structure. It might be protecting our internal structure. If you think about the skeleton, it's a very sort of Saturnian thing. It's holding us up. It's giving us our form. So if you think of Saturn and the rings around it, Saturn is all about form, but also the restrictions that happen when you have a form. Now, Saturn is also a bit like the big father, and he could be a beneficial father. He could be a helpful father, a kind of nurturing father, or he could be quite a judgmental. Often, I think Saturn, when he's in difficult aspects, we get the judgmental father energy coming out. So at the time of this new moon, we might be also noticing that there is a feeling of criticism or judgment, or maybe self-judgment, that you are judging yourself by. And so it might be a time to cut away from that. It might be a time to see it for what it is, to see that we have judgments, we have self-talk. Often that self-talk is based on personal experience from careless comments or forceful comments from people that maybe we didn't ask for their comments, but things that have gone into our psyche. So this could be a really good time to cut and let go. If you think of Saturn, he's also known as Chronos. And you do have the idea of him with a scythe, like the master of time. And of course, everything has its time and everything has an end of its time. That's kind of mixing in a bit with Pluto. But, Saturn is also known for aging and getting older, and also responsibility and parenting, taking ownership of things, sort of being in charge. And so again, you might want to think about, where has my responsibilities got too onerous, got too heavy to carry? Where are these burdening me? Where are the big heavy thoughts of mankind weighing down on me? Where do I need to take some of this off my shoulders? So again, your new moon might have something to do with your wellness. You might be noticing about your wellness and how much you're paying attention to things. You might be noticing that you've been paying so much attention to the worldly world that you've not attended to your inner world, which is obviously really important that you do. It's also in a square to Jupiter. And Jupiter is largely a beneficial looking planet. People talk about the possibilities that come from Jupiter, the opportunities, the way things seem to rise up and get exciting. And there's a faithfulness with Jupiter. Not faithful necessarily in terms of relationships and fidelity, but there's, Jupiter is also known for faith, like religious or spiritual faith. So there is, interestingly, I think Jupiter and Saturn can cross over a little bit with this. Saturn appears to be quite traditional, and some religions and religious cultures are quite traditional. So I think there's a bit of a shared almost like a combination between these two energies. But both Saturn and Jupiter are an image of the archetypal father, one that is more jokey and sells a vision and is hoping that people rise to that vision. Jupiter is more engaging, is inviting you to join him on the great adventure. He's still in charge, he's still leading, but he's doing it with fun and flair and sometimes a bit of carelessness. And then Saturn, he may well be leading, but who's in control, what the measurements are, and what is permissible and what's not. So you've got two very sort of different sort of archetypes of authority at the time of the new moon. So again, this might also be about, I'm feeling the energies of my right hand, I'm feeling the energies of my left hand, but actually none of these are particularly sitting well with me. I need to go inside and find out what I believe in, who is the authority in me? How do I become my own authority? How do I notice and pay attention to what I need to do for me? How can I get healthier and more, have more feelings of well-being and also purity? There's probably some things that you've been doing to yourself whilst also prostrating yourself to the ideas of big business or government or whoever the apparent authorities are in your life. So it's interesting, actually. I got a comment from somebody on a video, which I haven't had time to respond to yet, but saying a lot of astrologers are talking about responsibility at the moment. Well, yeah, I agree. There's a lot going on in terms of responsibility, and Jupiter and Saturn in a square. There are these two sort of parent archetypes or governing archetypes that are in a square. They come together every 9 years in this square. They're on a 20-year trajectory. It's a huge theme right now, discovering where our own levels of responsibility are. I also think that we are more free when we are fully responsible for ourselves, which might sound a bit oxymoronic, but I think that we're always somebody's lapdog, or we're always victimizing ourselves when we accept other people's standards for our own way of living without making our own decisions. When we are choosing how we're living our lives and we're taking the responsibility for choice, we are choosing and living in the responsibility of our choices. That to me is true freedom, but it might not match your definition of freedom. I don't know. We all have our personal definitions, but I think that might be why the subject of responsibility is coming up right now, and also that the Virgo energy is all about responsibility. How can we make things work better, be more economical, be better, have a better ecology? How can it be more healthy? So it's funny, that as we're coming into this new moon in Virgo time, I've been hearing things like "Make America Healthy Again." So the idea of health, I've seen quite a few health things are coming up at the moment. So there's a lot about taking personal responsibility, a lot about finding your natural health and your natural path to healing, and taking full responsibility for it. I mean, like healthcare is an interesting one, isn't it? You can take full responsibility. I think it's good to have healthcare, and there are many arguments that if we put our healthcare in the hands of other people, we're not fully taking responsibility for it. If you're the sort of person that wants to take a pill every time you get ill, but not look at maybe, well, I realize my phrasing, if you're the kind of person, I don't mean it like that. We've been conditioned to believe that health is as simple as taking a pill, that we have something wrong and we go to the doctors, we get prescribed something, and then boom, that's done. There are other ways of looking at health. And I think when we've given the power to other people to tell us what health is, where we're not really taking full responsibility for ourselves and noticing what feels healthy, bringing in different kinds of diets or ways of being to feel more healthy, then it's interesting. I'm very grateful that if and when I get ill, that there is something there for me. Having said that, I haven't been to the doctors for years and years. And I'm really happy with that. So, I think this is one of the reasons why this is coming up. And this is Virgo season. It's not just the new moon. We've recently had Venus going through the sign of Virgo. Mercury is about to go in the sign of Virgo. The sun is in the middle of Virgo right now. So we are in the middle of Virgo season. Of course, responsibilities coming up. I hope that answered your question. We've also got a trine to Ceres in Capricorn at the time of this new moon. So here's Ceres here. She is, interestingly, her daughter is quite important in the asteroid section of this. Ceres is known as she's like Mother Earth. She is the goddess of the earth and the harvest, also known as Demeter. So she's absolutely about natural health and healing, interestingly. So if you are using this new moon in Virgo to feel more natural, feel more grounded, feel like, I ordered some grounding sheets the other day. That is really in tune with the moon, isn't it? I hadn't even realized I'd done that, but my own attention had gone more that way. The more we are out in nature, the more we're in the fresh air, the more obviously I'm sat with studio lights on me. We need to get into natural light, like the more we're in the nature, the natural way of being, the better we feel. So Ceres is absolutely here to support that. And Ceres is also in a fertility cycle. Ceres is, she knows when all the plants are about to throw their seeds out. She knows how to run the weather, how to work everything so that everything is going according to plan. She is like the overseer of fertility. She's there to help us get into our natural rhythms of life. And of course, the new moon, we're talking about the natural cycles. So, if you are also wanting to use the new moon to get into a better natural fertility cycle, if you're trying to get to the bottom of perimenopausal symptoms, this could also be quite useful. Ceres also does have a lot of grief, which I'll come to at the second part of this, but she also works with aging, like the other side of the cycle. When we're not fecund, when we're not in this like real strong fertility cycle, she's also looking at the end, as we come into a different kind of creation. How does our creativity continue beyond menopause? So, Ceres is there, and she's there to help you through any grief that you might have. So it's a really strong theme. And it's also conjunct Vesta. Now, Vesta is an interesting character. Vesta is known, she's like a Vestal virgin. She is absolutely about all things that are authentic, that are truthful, that feel absolutely critical, like real core energy. She is like it's like tapping into the warmth of who you really are. She is the hearth. She is right in your body. She really knows your truth. And when you're living with your truth, and being in your truth, she really fires up. So I really like the planet of Vesta, because I think, if we're not feeling fired up, if we're not in our element there, then we are not somehow being our truth. She gives us the energy, I think. She's like almost like a catalyst for us becoming more magnificent. Once we're in our truth, once we're aligned to what feels right for us, it comes forth. So having her in a conjunction with the new moon, I think is quite useful. Now, we do also have this kite energy going on. Now, it's not directly linked to the new moon, but it's happening alongside that. I'm actually talking about this kite energy in my weekly forecast. So have a look for that. I'll be talking about Venus in a conjunction with the South Node, Neptune in a conjunction to the North Node. I did mention those a little bit in last week's forecast as well. But, Venus is in, I'll just trace it out. Venus is in a trine to Uranus and Pluto, and in a kite with Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and then back to Venus. But you've also got the South Node, you've also got the North Node involved in this, and also Juno is here as well. So there's a very sort of like big lineup there of really fantastic energy. Again, I'm talking about that in the weekly forecast. So if you want to know more about that, check that out. Okay, so let's have a look at the new moon in Virgo. So the new moon in Virgo is at 11 degrees 04. Now, the Sabian symbols, there's 360 of them. Linda Hill, in her book, she calls it the 360 degrees of wisdom, which I really, really love. And so there is a whole kind of universe of these Sabian symbols, and there are different versions of them. I'm using Linda Hill's, and you can go to her website. It is www.sabiansymbols.com. And Linda's got a really fantastic interactive website that you can go to. So you just go there, and then whatever degree you want to get a meaning for, under Find My Symbol, or I think it's Find My Symbol, you would select Virgo. Then you would select the degree. And now for me, it's 1104, but it could be, I don't know, 1132 or 1142 or 55, but if it's 11, it will automatically, by Linda's website, get rounded up to 12. And so the symbol that will come out will be Virgo 12. Now, the meaning of this Sabian symbol, which is about our new moon that's happening on the 2nd or 3rd, according to where you are, is as follows. It's called A Bride with Her Veil Snatched Away. So let's see what this means. I mean, that's quite an interesting idea, isn't it? This symbol implies the issue of unveiling oneself in some way, and you or someone else can no longer hide under the pretense or hide your light. Well, that to me also sounds a bit like Vesta in a conjunction with this new moon, and the fact that it's new moon in Virgo. It's about getting to a real authentic purity, like really get down to who you are. But anyway, you can no longer hide behind the pretense or hide your light. You're likely to be faced with a moment of moving into a new life and a new sense of identity. I love that. Perhaps there is a feeling that you or somebody is not quite ready to give themselves completely to a relationship or a situation, but they do not have much choice. If one doesn't go willingly, they'll probably be pushed forwards, finally taking the plunge. There can be an unveiling of one's true identity, which can lead to some surprising realizations. That's also interesting, actually, because in the next part where I'm looking at the asteroids, there is a mythical story between Ceres and Pluto, or as they're also known as Demeter and Hades. Now, they basically, Pluto stole, Hades stole Demeter's daughter, Persephone, who's also known as Proserpina, and Core. And so Ceres, who used to preside on Earth with her daughter, who was the goddess of the cereals, and she was a fertility goddess. She was jumped on by Hades and allegedly kidnapped into the underworld, where he became her queen. And Ceres Demeter went to the gods to get her daughter back, and they said she could come back, but only according to how much of the underworld she had taken in. She had eaten so many pomegranate seeds and not eaten another set of pomegranate seeds, and so she was made to reside down with Pluto, or Hades, her husband at this point, half of the time, and then come back above ground half the time. So, she is known for being the queen of the underworld and all the things that Hades ruled. So minerals, the rights of life and death, and the sort of coming into the ground, the funeral. It's a really sort of immense wealth, because everything returns to the ground. But she also presides, she has some affinity with what happens overground as well. So she's really fertile and really wealthy. And there are also stories to suggest that maybe she wasn't kidnapped, but she was running away because her mum was maybe keeping too much of an eye on her, and that she needed a bit of fun. So I think this speaks to a lot of people. It speaks to the idea of how far do we go for safety, and also what happens when we are sort of going off on our independence and things go wrong. And of course, things do go wrong. And people can And I'm not condemning kidnapping or anything like that. And it also, it relates to a lot of things that people might be aware of that, come up in the news every now and again, or in alternative news cycles. In fact, it's coming up in the news right now about children going missing, unaccounted children, like thousands of children going missing, not just right now in terms of migration and how children go missing or get kidnapped, or but child trafficking is quite a strong theme. So there is an ongoing theme, and by theme I'm not trying to lighten the load and say, oh, it's just a theme, it's not really happening. I'm just saying I think there's a current awareness that who gets to protect, how do we protect our children, and who gets to protect them? Who gets to have the say so? Who's in charge? Sarah's, you'd think the mum would have some kind of authority, but she had to go above, and she went to the Olympians to find out how she could protect her child. I think this speaks to a much bigger situation. So it's interesting as well. Sorry, going back to the Sabian symbol. Perhaps there's a feeling that you or somebody's not quite ready to give themselves completely to a relationship or situation. Maybe that no means no. And right now there are situations where it feels that your no is not being honored, but they do not have much of a choice. I think there are lots of people right now who maybe feel like they don't have much choice, or don't feel like they are empowered to make a new decision for themselves. It also says if one doesn't go willingly, they'll probably be pushed forwards. Again, what that is bringing up for me when I read that is the idea of social contracts. The idea that if everybody kind of agrees to everything, or a certain amount of people agree to something, and there is a consensus that everybody has to commit to this. I think we are coming into interesting times in terms of mass consensus and normal or situations and governing bodies that we've always accepted as this is just how it is, because there are lots of companies now that are more powerful, have more assets than actual countries. So I think things are turning on their heads, and I'm not saying what is right and what is wrong. Absolutely, that's not what I'm here to do. However, I see that the discussions of these are on the table right now, and many people are likely feeling that if they if they don't want to comply, how can they stand outside of society? Is it possible to stand outside of society right now if you don't actually agree with what's going on? How do you do that? There can be an unveiling of one's true identity, which can lead to some surprising revelations. Well, that would be really quite interesting. If people are, I'm wondering if there are some new identities or some new things that we're going to discover about people, in this whole moon cycle, because, we're not just talking about the day of the new moon. I think the new moon and full moon are important dates, and the degrees that they're happening at are critical degrees that last for the duration, like from new moon to new moon. So I wonder what is going to happen in terms of news in this next news cycle. Are we going to realize that some people that we've thought about in a particular way are actually somebody else completely different? Are we going to realize that people have had double identities? Or it's kind of interesting, isn't it? It's also saying no excuses, no pretense, breaking down walls that keep people from relating. This, I think, also ties into Venus in a conjunction to the South Node, which I'll talk about in my weekly update. Secret motives revealed, unveiling and exposing. Also a desire for privacy, vows and psychic abilities. So, if you've got psychic abilities that you're wanting to develop during this time, and also to take the veil of remove the veils that maybe are protecting you from doing that, and to see yourself actually as a psychic being, or as a completely open being, somebody with really important. I think, a lot of humanity has been switched off, maybe culturally, I don't know exactly, or through the foods that we're eating. I think a lot of people have switched themselves off to their natural birthright of intuition. So that would be really interesting to see if psychic abilities suddenly burst forwards and come forwards. I would love that. So on the negative side of this, it could be, you can't quite see it, but I can just read a bit beyond this line. It says, stubbornly refusing to accept new directions in life, failing to commit, not coming up with what was promised, harsh realities, withdrawal, feelings of violation. Yeah, so there is a downside to any energy field when it goes full on. How do we get the balance with this unveiling energy, where there is a possibility of a new identity, and also the ideas of responsibilities that we might have for each other, that we might feel that we've been pushed into, possibly reluctantly. Lots and lots going on there. Anyway, let's have a look at part 2. So now we're going to have a look at the new moon in Virgo, but from a deeper look. Now I'm considering also the following 5 asteroids. Now, Nemesis is the one that's closest to the actual new moon in Virgo. Now, Nemesis is the goddess of retribution and indignation. So she had some skills in evening out things for people. So for instance, if somebody had a lot of good luck, and it was deemed that they had an unfair amount of good luck, Nemesis would go and sort of make it fairer from her own perspective. She righted the wrongs of unfair advantage. And I don't think she really liked people that took things, that stole things, that capitalized on things that they really didn't deserve to. So she would take them to task as well. So she had some real key skills there. Now, she is reputed to be the daughter of Nyx and somebody else, Erebus or something like that. However, it's also possibly reported that she is also one of Zeus's offspring. But there's like lots of stories when you look her up. So she's a maybe related to Zeus, who is also Jupiter. So anyway, Nemesis is a theme, you may be feeling right now that you're in a world of retribution, or that you are wanting for things to get fairer. I know there are lots of narratives in the world right now about like the idea of you'll own nothing but be happy, or the idea of lightening the load, or keeping everyone at a similar level, so that what's that phrase I hear people talking about? Not equality, but equity. I think that fits in with that, the idea of what some people might see as unfair advantage. So I understand that there are really strong narratives of that going on right now. So I imagine that's going to be a talking point over the next month. Is equity and things being fairer based on outcome, is that something that is fair? Is that actually what should happen? I know there are also people that are saying, well, if I've worked hard for something and I've put in my blood, sweat and tears for something, why shouldn't I enjoy the spoils of my good fortune? Well, not my good fortune, but my hard work and effort as well. And I imagine saying that has probably riled a few people up, because, people have got very, very strong opinions either way. But I want to keep it kind of fair as I'm reading this. The idea of Nemesis is very strong. So you might want to look at where Nemesis is helping you. Is she helping you? Or is the idea of righting the wrongs of unfair advantage, is that actually draining you? Is it helping you? Is it helping you to feel better, to feel more empowered in your life? Or is getting upset about where things are maybe unfair towards you, is that a motivating force? I mean, this can play out in so many different ways. I know I've spent time in my past where I felt quite begrudging towards other people's good fortune. I'm glad to say I don't feel like that so much anymore, because it weighs you down. It's not a comfortable feeling. Next one then, that is sort of close to the conjunction. I mean, we do have Persephone, the daughter of Ceres. We do have her. She's in an exact square, but I think a conjunction is always going to be more important than a square, but I will come to her after. But we've got Apollo. So he's the son of Zeus and Leto. So the god of archery, he's very creative. He had the sense of prophecy, music and dance and clowning around, but also he had this skill of divine distance, which I love. I'd never heard of it before. But making people aware of that should say guilt, not guilt, although that could be quite helpful, and purifying them of their guilt, divine distance. So I wonder if that could also work with sort of like the idea of divine healing, you know, the energy of helping people find their awareness, so that they can release something and feel purified. So I, you know, for all of you distance healers out there, if you do distance healing, or if you have kind energies that you want to put out into humanity at the time of this new moon, then I think that could be quite helpful. Apollo, in my tarot deck, Apollo is the character used to represent the sun. And it's really seen as a card of creativity and a card of really allowing yourself to come forwards, you know, really allowing yourself to kind of like have that knowing of who you really are. I guess the gift of prophecy and healing, you know, like healing your persona, like knowing who you are. So I love the fact that that is so close to the new moon, you know, so this might be about you coming forwards in a way that is with some knowing, and also that by you being you're helping other people to become aware of their own guilt of not being themselves. The next one then is Persephone. So I've described a little bit of her situation, that she was allegedly kidnapped and taken and became the wife of Hades / Pluto, who is also actually her uncle, because Pluto is Zeus's brother. So she was the daughter of Ceres and Zeus. So here we've got this kind of square, you know, so if we're thinking that the new moon has something about being ourselves and also working on the ideas of what's fair and what's not fair, then Persephone here in a square, you know, she's got a lot of wealth. She's got a lot of wealth, and she's got a lot of power, and she also still has some kind of fertility and power on land as well. I mean, because of her experiences, because of what Persephone went through, she has ended up with a much stronger level of influence than anyone could have. Does that confer her unfair advantage? I'm guessing some people may well have thought that she had an unfair advantage, you know, that she had the luck, obviously luck or not luck, I don't know what actually happened in these stories. I mean, they're so multi-layered as well. But yeah, the idea that maybe some people are either born into a stronger family line, they might have had to suffer really big difficulties and horrible treatment from their family and their uncles, the males in their family. You know, there's a lot, you know, it's almost as if she's rewarded for being inconvenienced or raped or hurt. You know, what I get here is that there's like the energy of possibly realizing that actually no one gets out of this life free. Nobody comes into this life free. None of us. It's almost like however we're doing our life, you know, whether we are born on into wealthy families or into poor families, the themes of kidnap, of rape, of murder, of the stories of wealth, you know, they are playing out for everyone in different ways. Nobody comes out of this without some skin in the game, you know. I'm not entirely sure, but to me, I think what I get from this is the sort of recognition that wherever we're born and whoever we're born to and whatever unique stories happen to us, without I'm not sort of explaining away the stories or how any of them were right to occur or not right to occur. I'm not here to judge them. However, what I am saying is we are all on our journey, and we could look at the unfair advantage that some people have, and yet there is a hidden cost. There is always something that we don't get to see. So what I'm really getting from this is, should we be judging in the first place? Or should we be actually working on our own energies right now, which I actually think is probably the easiest thing to do, is to work on our own energies, work on our own energy field, like recognize that if we were all doing our own thing, if I'll do me, you do you, you do you, you do you. If we were all doing ourselves, things might actually work out a little bit easier for people. It is weird when we get into these stories. Interestingly, there's also the story of step parents and step children. And of course, these are modern day stories, you know, about like the evil stepmother or the horrible stepchild. You know, it goes on. Like, for instance, this next one, Hephaistos, again, the son of Zeus, this time with Hera. He was born, I mean, this is awful to call somebody ugly and lame, but he was cast out because he wasn't seen as godly enough. And so he put his energy and his anger and all of his godliness into making clever tools and things of beauty. He was a smith, so he worked with all types of metal. Now he did sometimes serve the gods, and he sometimes worked against the gods with his really amazing technology. And he was really looked after by many, you know, so he was accepted by the gods temporarily and then cast out again and again and again. And he was always taken back in by the humans or other sort of entities. You know, he was never without support, even if he wasn't in the right place. And he was very, very clever with how he developed his skill set. You know, when I listen to that story, one of the things that I recognize is, you know, he didn't get the love and support and energy that he wanted from the people that he wanted it from, but he did still get some kind of love and nurturance around him. It's almost like God abhors a vacuum, you know. So for people who are born with nothing, sometimes you get sucked into another little pot where, you know, there is somebody who does want to attend to you. And the idea that his impediments or it gave, like, his harder start in life gave him the inspiration to do something. I've often found that the people with the strongest squares and oppositions in their charts, people with the toughest charts, in fact, I think get off their backsides and do something with the energy that they're doing it. So, you know, if I see someone with like a trine, say between Venus and Uranus, I would take that trine to be a lot more well used in the charts of somebody with a few squares and oppositions. Whereas if somebody would just had trine, I would think that person, it's too easy for that person. They're probably not doing enough with it. So again, there's another story of, you know, we all have our story, and even these people that are born into the wealthy aren't necessarily that well off. And actually, you know, most of us are all learning lessons wherever we're born. I really sort of, that's what I'm really getting from all of these. And then we've got Heracles, also known as Hercules, who's the illegitimate son of Zeus, and a human mother, Alcmene. So, you know, he was again cast out because nobody liked him. You know, he was a reminder of a different past, a different occurrence. Now, this kid was sent some snakes to kill him in his cot, and he apparently saw them and killed them. You know, he was strong and fearless, and in his life, which sounds really, really difficult, he was given 12 labors, 12 things to do, which would have sent a mere mortal absolutely insane and to his death. But of course, he was half god, half mortal. He had an inordinate tasks ahead of him, and he had the determination to prove himself. He got through everything. He faced death. In the end, he got poisoned by his wife, who was tricked. He was given some poisoned blood on a robe, and basically if it touched his skin, it was going to kill him. He was so brave at the end, he even kind of built his own funeral pyre. So again, there's this other story, a real sort of like them and us story, like the gods versus the humans, and how the gods want to keep their bloodline really, really pure and not have humans like tainting it. And I think there are kind of energies of that going on right now. Like people look at the wealthy and say, isn't it funny how they all stick together and we all stick together? And he was cast out. He was seen, both him and Hephaistos were seen with a certain level of disgust. There was a certain level of disgust afforded them because of their birth or because of how they looked, and they were cast out. They weren't good enough to be with the gods. So there's a lot going on. What I'm really like, if I was to like at the end of this, obviously because I'm reading this in real time, I've not like read this before recording this. I always just do it in real time. What I'm really getting from this is we are really all on our path. We've all got a tough wicket wherever we've come from. There are some that have more, there are some that have less. And I don't necessarily think that makes their life any better or any worse. I also think there is an ongoing story of the people who are in charge, who possibly see other people with a sense of disgust, who maybe don't see us as equals, and the whole idea of the I think power coming into the hands of humans again. Obviously, there are some people that believe that, we are not all necessarily, I didn't realize this conversation was going to go here, but there are some people that think we're all human, and some that think, some of us are human, some of us aren't. Whatever is going on, what I think is there is this idea of people coming back into their own power. There are themes of this. What I actually see from this actually is an equality or an awakening. And if we go back, if you're still here, thank you. I understand this could have triggered quite a few people. The idea of a bride with her veil snatched away, that you can't hide who you are right now. I think we are going to be realizing that the way the world is possibly not what we've been sold. And I really see that there is an awakening of something going on. So I think this is really amazing. I didn't think this was going to go here, or that I was going to say the things I've said or shared. But yeah, if these are themes that are coming up for you, like the feeling of difference, the feelings of othering, I would say be aware of it, but only to the extent of how free you feel. Like, does othering help you in your life or not? If it helps you to feel stronger, great. But like, notice what othering other people does. Like when you recognize somebody and you say, are you friends with people of a different like political persuasion, or are you for this or against this, or are you really rich? Be careful of your judgments. I think they are really going to play a massive part in this month ahead. So the unity that is possible as the sun and the moon come together each month at the time of the new moon, where we can start again fresh. I really think there's such a strong energy for us to get things into alignment, to get things aligned towards natural health and healing, aligned to what works, aligned to what is fair, aligned to natural law and order. Who knows where we're going to be when I do this next one. But anyway, thanks for listening. If you listened this far, if you want me to have a look at your chart, you might do, you might not after this. Just get in touch. All of my details are below. But anyway, have a lovely month ahead. And if you want to know more about the week ahead and Venus South Node, also Mars going into Cancer, then check out my weekly forecast too. But anyway, lots of love. Bye for now.